¿Qué onda, plebes? Welcome back. This is part 2 of my video series, How I Study in PA School and Get A's. Today I'm going to be discussing the study techniques that I talked about in video 1 and how I incorporated that into my clinical medicine course. If that interests you, stay tuned. Welcome back, plebes. My name is Mario Navarro. I'm a second-year PA student at UC Davis in Sacramento, California. And today we're going to be discussing specifically how I studied for my clinical medicine class and how I incorporated the study techniques that I discussed in my previous video, part 1 of how I study. Be sure to like and subscribe if you find this content helpful. So here we go. How I studied for clinical medicine. So clinical medicine, this course in specific will probably be the course that will be worth the most units. And so when people say that, we're drinking from a fire hydrant over here, this is the class they're probably talking about, aside from pharmacology. One of the things that I want to keep in mind is this principle called the Pareto Principle, This principle, it was named after this Italian economist. His name was Vilfredo Pareto, who observed that 80% of income in Italy was received by 20% of the Italian population. The assumption and the overall lesson was that most of the results in any situation are determined by a small number of causes. I learned about this principle from another YouTuber called StudyMD. He does a lot of streams where he does Pomodoro timers with kind of like lo-fi music. But he discussed this principle and introduced it to me and applied it to the setting of learning. And it's something that I've kind of have kept in mind, and it helped shift my brain away from thinking that everything that we're learning in PA school is important. And I mean, everything is important, but I mean in the sense of for the exams. Typically, 80% of what is tested comes from 20% of the material. I'll say it again, 80% of what is tested comes from 20% of the material. And so I have an analogy here. This is a metabolic pathway that we actually had to memorize in our No, I'm joking. We never had to memorize this. This is like a biochem pathway. If you're in biochemistry right now, I am so sorry. But yes, this is just for my analogy. So consider this graph with all of these little details as all of the content that you need to cover for your upcoming exam. Typically, what most students do and what I used to do is that I viewed all of this and I'm like, holy smokes, this is a lot, but it's all important. And so what I would do is I would just either start in chronological order or in alphabetical order or from left to right, making sure that I learn, that I understand, and that I memorize every detail on this chart, and viewing all of the content on this chart as equally important. If we apply the Pareto Principle to this chart and to learning in general, the fact is that not everything on this chart is important. For the sake of our exam, only 20% of that we actually need to know to answer 80% of the questions that we're going to be asked on our exam. And so what does that look like? It looks like this. This circle here represents the 20%. This is AKA the high yield topics that you want to make sure you master. And so rather than moving from left to right, what we want to do is pinpoint exactly what we need to know, focus on mastering that. And then once we have more time, we can focus on these other trivial details or low yield topics that may be, 1 or 2 questions on the exam. And if we miss them, that's okay. At the end of the day, we're focusing on mastering this core material. And so my job as a student and the way I view this is to figure out what that 20% is and make sure that I master that content. So now the first thing that I would use is illness scripts. So an illness script is an organized mental summary of a provider's knowledge of a disease. It looks like this. And some other students call these charts, and it's essentially a fancy chart. This is my script for my pulmonology topic. And so at the top, I want you guys to kind of pay attention up here to this. It has the headers: disease, pathophysiology, epidemiology, symptoms, presentation, differential diagnosis, and treatments. So this corresponds to us explaining the specific disease. In this case, it's chronic bronchitis, and how it typically presents, and then things that we want to keep in mind and tests that we want to use to diagnose, and then how we treat it. A lot of students, what they typically do is that they'll build their own chart and build these scripts. But what I found is that it just takes way too long. And so if you watch that first video, the bonus tip that I discussed was reach out to your upperclassmen. Ask them for these scripts. They probably have them. And yeah, it'll save you a bunch of time. The next thing I did was incorporate the Feynman technique, explaining things as soon as possible. So as soon as you get this script, you want to start explaining it. So what I would typically do is Brian and I would explain and go back and forth, taking turns explaining. I would explain chronic bronchitis to him, and he would explain the second topic over here, emphysema, to me. The second step is to convert this into Anki. And so Anki, as I've said before, is a flashcard application that uses a spaced repetition algorithm. You can download that at apps.ankiweb.net. I'll have a link in the description below. But one of the things that I want to highlight is that the main two types of cards that we would use, it would be cloze deletions, which is just a fancy word for a fill-in-the-blank card. And the other type of thing that I won't be discussing in this video, but I heavily use for my pharmacology class, is image occlusion cards. One thing I do want to highlight is that this is by no means an Anki tutorial, and I think I may do one in the future. But to keep this video short, I will only be showing how I create my illness script into Anki. But I did want to shout out J.R. Smith, who's I think a third or fourth year medical student at the Mayo Clinic. And he's a big inspiration to me. His YouTube channel is called Evolve in Medic. Go ahead and check it out. And he actually has a really, really good Anki tutorial video. So he dives in on how to download it, how to set it up, how to set up the settings, and how to start using it. Again, I'll just be focusing on how I converted my illness script into Anki. So on my left, I have here Anki, which is already open. This is my own personal account. And on the right, I have my pulmonology illness script, specifically the chronic bronchitis topic that we were just talking about. And so to convert this into Anki, I would first go down to create deck, and you would name this, let's name this pulmonology deck. And now this pops up, and these will be in alphabetical order. You hit pulmonology deck. We'll give it a second. And it's going to say, congratulations, you have finished this deck because we haven't made any cards yet. And so we'll hit add up here. And now I want you to pay attention up here to these two kind of bars. The first one is, this is going to specify the type of card that you're using. In this case, you want to click that and make sure that you're using the type of card you want to use for whatever card you're making. In this case, we're doing a fill in the blank card, which is our cloze card. So we have that. And then over here, we want to specify what deck we want to save these cards to. So this is the pulmonology deck. And so I'm making sure that that's good too. And now we can start copying and pasting this text into here. But like I said before, to do a fill in the blank, so you have to use this form of script to specify what parts you want to hide for it to become your card. And so if we did like a 2 + 2 = 4, highlight 4, hopefully it lets me do it. Highlight 4, and then you would hit this button up here with the 3 dots. It says cloze deletion. One thing that I highly recommend doing is using keyboard shortcuts, which is something that has made my process of converting cards very, very quick. And you can also search up on YouTube how to use keyboard shortcuts on Anki. But what I'm going to hit is Shift Command C, and what that's going to do is create a script for the 4, and you'll see what that looks like. And so now we have these 2 squigglies. I don't know what these things are called. C1, and then these dots of 4, and then the 2 squigglies behind it. And so it's specifying, it's saying this is cloze deletion number 1. And so this is going to be a card. And so when I hit add, it just converted that into a card. And we'll see what that looks like right here. So here we have that card. 2 + 2 =, and then if we reveal the back of it, 4. Sweet. Now that I made that as clear as possible, I'm going to show you just what I do, which is my process of just copying and pasting the things in this illness script into Anki. And this would take us a few days. Typically, Brian and I would divide and conquer, because some of these illness scripts can be, this one specifically is about 26 pages long. And so it's a little extensive, but once you get faster at this process, it goes by super quick. And so I'm going to copy and paste, let's see, just this section here. Copy, paste, and I'll put chronic bronchitis is defined as a, and so the first thing that I'm going to do is I want to create this term, the chronic bronchitis term, into one cloze deletion. And so we'll do that. And so I've highlighted chronic bronchitis here, and now I'm going to hit the cloze deletion. All right. And so now that's going to be a term. And I also want to test myself on the fact that it occurs for at least 3 months. So I'll highlight that as well. So here, what we're going to be doing is we're creating two cloze deletions, cloze deletion 1, cloze deletion 2. And these will be two separate cards that will be created. So we'll hit add. So now if I go and see the types of cards that I created, we go back to decks. We have 3 cards here. The 2 plus 2 equals 4, and then the 2 cards that we just made. And we hit study now. 2 plus 2 equals 4. Show answer. We'll see that. And then here's the other cloze deletion card. So blank is defined as a productive cough for at least 3 months a year for 2 consecutive years in whom other causes of chronic cough have been excluded. And so we reveal our answer, and it's chronic bronchitis. Now here's the second card. Chronic bronchitis is defined as a productive cough for at least blank. And we show our answer, 3 months. So now we'll keep on going. So once we've converted that illness script into Anki, now I would use the spaced repetition and interleaving effect to memorize these cards. Number 4, now let's move on, is practice questions. As I've said before and said in the first video, practice questions are really, really important to improving your exam scores and increasing your learning during PA school. And so I wanted to kind of give you guys a tour of the exam questions that I particularly use and found very, very helpful during my didactic year. The main test banks that I used were Smarty Pants, Rosh Review, Didactic, and Exam Master. Smarty Pants, I'll show you guys a screenshot right now. It's about $79. Rosh Review Didactic is around $249 per year. And Exam Master is comparable to Rosh, but I didn't include it because it's provided to us by UC Davis. Smarty Pants, if I were to grade the difficulty of their exam questions, Smarty Pants is for sure the easiest, and a lot of first order questions, a lot easier. The second is Rosh Review, which is harder, and Exam Master is the hardest by far. If I were to only pick one and say, what, like if you were to ask me which is the most valuable, Rosh Review by far has, I believe, the best explanations, the best layout. They have a lot of pictures that definitely increase retention. And so here's some screenshots of what's included with each and every one of these services. And one thing before I forget, I know you guys probably said these prices are freaking insane. Everything in medical education, unfortunately, is super expensive. And a lot of these companies know that they're providing value to their students. They know you purchase these practice exams, you're probably going to do better on your actual exam scores. And so they can get away with charging an arm and a leg, $249 a year. And one way to get around this is kind of like how I did it. I split up these accounts with my classmates. For Smarty Pants, I shared that with 3 or 4 other guys, and we only paid $25. For Rosh Review Didactic, I shared that with like 7 or 8 people. And so again, we were only paying $30, $40 for a year subscription. So here's a rough overview of Smarty Pants. Smarty Pants, I would consider it as a Pants Prep Pearls book. If you've ever seen this, I have it right here. This is Pants Prep Pearls. This is one of the, this is like the Bible in PA school for a lot of students. It's essentially a fancy illness script, but in a different format. That's all it is. And so Smarty Pants has essentially Pants Prep Pearls, but written in an online, accessible format. But what you're really paying for when you sign up for Smarty Pants is this. You're paying for the exams. As you can see here, you get topic-specific exams. I usually have anywhere from 100 to 200 questions on cardiology, pulmonology, GI, ENT, you name it, they got it. The second one is Rosh Review. Rosh Review has specifically Rosh Review Didactic Question Bank, because they have a question bank for clinicals. They have a question bank for didactic. The one that you want to get if you're a didactic student, if this is your first year of PA school, is a didactic question bank. And again, split this with your classmates. And this one's definitely worth it. This was the one that the questions looked like our actual exam questions in our program. And so when you get the Rosh Review Didactic, you get about 1,830 questions. And then again, ranging from different topics. We have 106 for cardio, 100 for ENT, 99 for endocrine. And so again, the more practice questions that you can get access to, the better you will be. And the last one, again, I don't think it's personally necessary to get, but is Exam Master. And again, same thing. It has 157 for cardio and just has a bunch of questions on different topics. All right. The second, I think, to last thing that I want to mention is study groups. For the longest, I was super hesitant about joining a study group. Luckily, Brian kind of pulled my ear and said, dude, you need to check this study group out. And yeah, it turned out to be one of the most rewarding things that I got involved in during my didactic year. And the thing that made our study group so, I think, successful and effective was the fact that we would use Kahoot. If you've never heard of Kahoot, Kahoot is a free online platform where you can make an account and make quizzes. You can make your own quizzes that kind of look like this. You'll have like a screen that pops up, and then users can log in with a specific code straight on their phone. Super easy to use. But what our study group would do is that we would share an account. We would all have the login, and we would all throw potential questions that we thought were going to be on the exam, or questions that we got wrong, or quiz questions. We would throw it into this Kahoot. We would meet up on a Friday, and we would run through these questions. And it would typically, our study group would be around 6, sometimes 10 people. And we would have anywhere from 60, 70 to 80 questions. And so it's just a really, really good way to, again, continue taking practice questions and testing yourself and essentially practicing how you play, which is with multiple choice questions. And so check it out, completely free, Kahoot.com. Now, the last thing that I'm super excited to be talking about is the game plan. I don't know who said this, but you've probably heard it. Failing to plan is planning to fail. And I'm a firm believer of that. And so I wanted to show you guys how I would essentially set up my game plan leading up a week before an actual exam. So I'm going to try to keep this super simple. I'm not going to be discussing how I would do this with, 2, 3 exams. I'm just going to be talking about a single exam so that you guys get the overall idea and can hopefully tailor it to whatever exams you guys may be having soon. The first thing that I want to say is the more specific you are, the better. The more specific you are, the better. So I've seen a lot of students where they get their agenda and they set up, okay, today I'm going to study an hour and a half of pathophysiology of clinical medicine. And for the following hour, I'm going to do pharmacology. And that's as far as their game plan goes. They have it in their agenda and they designated time blocks, but they haven't specified what exactly they're going to do. And so this is what I mean by the specifics. So here's my my rough game plan. This is the first part of it. Excuse my infantile handwriting. But the first thing I do before I start writing exactly what I'm going to do each day, I'd like to take a macroscopic picture of my workload. After converting my illness script into Anki cards, I get an idea of how many cards I have. So let's say for pulmonology, I have a pulmonology exam coming up. And I ended up making, from that illness script, 500 Anki cards. And so I have 500 cards. And then I go into my practice question banks and I figure out how many exam questions, practice questions I have access to. So hypothetically speaking, for Smarty Pants, I would have 100. For Rosh Review, I would have 100. And for Exam Master, I would have 100. A total of 300 practice questions. So I have to get through 500 Anki cards and 300 multiple choice practice questions. And so now that I would have an idea of my workload, this is what I would do. Let's say my exam was going to be next Monday, for example. And yeah, I would work my way back a week. So on Monday, we're going to have our poem exam. And then it's Sunday, Saturday, Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday. And what I would do is I would divide the amount of cards that I need to get through, divide it by the amount of days that I want to spend memorizing them and studying them. And so I have 500 cards to get through. So between Monday and Friday, I'm going to do 100 new cards each day. 100, 100, 100, 100. And then on Saturday, Sunday, I'm going to give myself some leeway just in case I don't finish to review any cards that I may have missed or review the entire deck. Because by that point, I've seen them so many times that I can just really fly through those cards very quickly. On this side, on the right, this corresponds to the amount of practice questions that I'm going to do. On Sunday, the day before the exam, I would review all of the cards I would have learned and also review any practice questions that I missed, that I marked as wrong. I would go back into each platform and figure out which ones I got wrong. And then we work our way back. On Saturday, I would, again, review the Anki cards and then do 50 practice questions from Exam Master. That's what EM stands for. On Friday, I would do another 50 Exam Master questions. And then on Friday, typically, we would also meet up for our group Kahoot. And then on Thursday, I would do Rosh Review, which is a little bit easier than Exam Master. And so I would do 50 questions of that, Rosh Review, RR, another 50 questions on Wednesday, and then the 100 cards. And then on Tuesday, I would do Smarty Pants, SP, and 50 questions from Smarty Pants. And then Monday, 50 questions from Smarty Pants. And so you get the idea. You're essentially dividing and conquering and giving yourself enough time to go through all these questions. And so by the time the exam comes around, by the time I get to Sunday, I've already seen all of the practice questions that I had access to. I've already seen 300 practice questions and have memorized, like the back of my hand, 500 Anki cards on pulmonology. All right, guys, that is it for this video. If you enjoyed this and want to learn more about how I study in PA school, make sure you subscribe, give this video a like, and hit that notification bell. Over this next week, I'll be continuing to release 3 more videos on this series of how I studied in PA school and got A's during my didactic year. I appreciate your guys' support, and I'll see you guys soon. Animo, plebes.